So welcome to this Community IT webinar, How to Nonprofit AI with Brenda Foster. My name is Carolyn Woodard. I'm the Outreach Director for Community IT, and I'm the moderator today. And I'm very happy to hear from our guest, Brenda. But first, I'm going to go over our learning objectives. So we are going to try to understand the various types of AI, artificial intelligence. We had somebody in the registration who said, please don't assume that we all know about AI already. So we're going to do some level setting and do some background. We're going to define ethical AI and why it matters for nonprofits. We're going to apply the 5-question framework to determine alignment with your mission. We're going to use proven prompting strategies to get evidence-based factual responses. We're going to identify next steps to implement ethical AI in your organization. And I'm really excited to welcome Brenda Foster to this webinar, who's going to lead us through a bunch of these things. So Brenda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Thank you, Carolyn. Hi, everybody. I'm Brenda Foster, and I am the Chief of Innovation at Vanguard Communications. We are a full-service public relations firm based in DC, Hispanic woman-owned, and we're a boutique. There's about 20 of us. And for the last 38 years, we've worked for solely causes, nonprofits, some government work, but that's our specialty, that's our passion. And one of the things that is really important to us is to make sure that nonprofits are not behind the curve in any kind of innovation. So when social media as social media tools start to change, we do everything that we can to jump in and learn them so that we can then advise our nonprofit clients on how they can take advantage of them before they get behind. We want to make sure that everything that's available to for-profit companies is available to nonprofits as well. So that's what caused us to start an AI task force a couple of years ago to sort of figure out what's going on with AI, what do they mean by AI, and then we really looked at a lot of the benefits as well as some of the concerns. And what we ended up with was what you'll see I'll talk about a lot today, which is ethical AI. The idea that if we're going to use it, we want to use it as ethically as possible, and we know that our clients want us to as well. So what you'll see here is a presentation that changes pretty often, and it changes because AI changes. And in fact, I have some interesting late-breaking articles that have come out in the past couple of days that I will talk about as we go through some of the trade-offs and things like that. But anyhow, thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And you just mentioned ethical AI and transparency, and I noticed a couple of people in the chat already are using AI assistants to help take notes, and it has the automatic, statement there so that everyone knows there are AI assistants working. So that is one of the things I know that we recommend. So my name is Carolyn Woodard. I am the Outreach and Director of Marketing for Community IT. Before I worked for Community IT, I was the IT director at a very large international nonprofit and then at a very small local nonprofit. So I am living proof that you don't need to have a huge technology background to manage IT at nonprofits. And that's something that our organization does. So I also have been dabbling in AI, but I am definitely not an expert in it. So I'm really excited about this presentation today. Before we begin, if you're not familiar with Community IT, a little bit about us. We're a 100% employee-owned managed services provider. So we provide outsourced IT support. We work exclusively with nonprofit organizations, and our mission is to help nonprofits accomplish their missions through the effective use of technology. We are big fans of what well-managed IT does for your nonprofit. We serve nonprofits across the United States, and we've been doing this for over 20 years. In fact, our 25th year anniversary is next year. We are technology experts. We are consistently given the MSP 501 recognition for being a top MSP, managed services provider, which is an honor we received again in 2025. We host a weekly podcast and a monthly free webinar series, You can access all of our previous webinar videos and transcripts on our website, communityit.com, and you can register for upcoming webinars there. For these presentations, we are vendor agnostic. We only make recommendations to our clients and only based on their specific business needs. We never get a client into a product because we get a hidden incentive or benefit from that. But we do consider ourselves a best of breed IT provider. It's our job to know the landscape, the tools that are available, reputable, and widely used. And we make recommendations on that basis for our clients based on their business needs, priorities, and budgets. So really excited today to talk about some of these tools. We're going to leave as much time as we can for Q&A. Please submit your questions through either the chat feature or the Q&A at any time today. I'll either break in and ask them if they're timely, or we'll save them for the end. Anything we can't get to, I'll ask Brenda to give us some written thoughts, and I'll append those to the transcript, which we'll put up on our website in about a week or so. You can check back after the webinar if we didn't get to your question. We're also going to be on Reddit right after the webinar answering questions. Brenda agreed to come over for 15 minutes or so you can join us there too after the webinar. And a little bit more about us. Our mission, as I said, is to create value for the nonprofit sector through well-managed IT. We also identify 4 key values as employee owners that define our company: trust, knowledge, service, and balance. So we seek always to treat people with respect and fairness, to empower our staff, clients, and sector to understand and use technology effectively, to be helpful with our talents, and we recognize that the health of our communities is vital to our well-being and that work is only a part of our lives. So I know things are really stressful in the nonprofit sector recently, maybe always. So we hope that you're taking care of yourselves too. And now we're going to launch our first poll. And this is a poll about your comfort level with AI tools. So your options are completely uncomfortable and unfamiliar with most tools. And there's no shame in this webinar. We're all here together to learn. So if that's you, go ahead and fill that out. You've come to the right place if you check that. Second option is somewhat uncomfortable. We use a few popular tools occasionally. The third is that kind of neutral. We're neither uncomfortable nor comfortable, kind of average use, what you would consider average use. The fourth option is somewhat comfortable. We use a few AI tools daily. Fifth option is completely comfortable. We use a lot of the tools a lot of the time. Our colleagues ask us how to teach them how. So, and then not applicable or other, if there's something else that you can put in the chat. Or if you just, you're in this webinar for some other reasons, you're not really using AI yet. And Brenda, can you see that?
I sure can. We're all over the place here, which is totally fine. And I'm hoping that those of you who are completely comfortable can also contribute in the chat anything that you know, because the one thing I will tell you is that I never would call myself an AI expert. Okay. And I think that's really important to say. I'm not an IT person in any way. What I am is somebody who understands nonprofits and understands how AI can benefit them to this point. But I do not know every tool in America. I've had people say to me during conferences, "What about this tool?" And it was released yesterday. And I'm like, "Well, no, I haven't had a chance to do that yet." So if you know of a tool that I haven't talked about, please share it with everybody. But this is great.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll hit all of the places that you need me to go, from those of you who are completely uncomfortable all the way to completely comfortable. Hopefully there'll be something that you can all learn here and that we can teach each other.
Sounds good. All right, let's get started.
All righty. So I want to do a little bit of level setting here, because I know that it can be, we talk about AI a lot, and AI can mean so many different things. If you like the old Steven Spielberg movie, AI to you is a little boy, a little fake boy. And maybe that's coming. It's sort of here in some cases. But the AI that I'm really going to be talking about today is generative AI. So let's talk about the differences. So one of the things that people who want you to use AI constantly say is, "Oh, come on now, you've been using it for years. The genie's out of the bottle. You can't put it back. You have to use AI." Well, yes and no. So what they're talking about for the most part is embedded AI. And those are tools that operate sort of behind the scenes They enhance the functionality of different things. So, you know, your Zoom screen, figuring out where you should be and what it should look like in the back. Any kind of enhancements for Google Maps, you know, if they are suggesting routes for you, things like that have been around for a really long time and they continue to grow. Look, the algorithms, we all talk about the algorithms, everywhere the algorithms, those are a form of embedded AI. What we're talking about is AI that you personally have a little more control over. All right. So discriminative AI is also one, unless you're an IT person, you're probably not doing that. But it's kind of exciting because that's the kind of AI that really has the opportunity to transform processes and systems in a way that we haven't seen before and that could make things much more efficient. Now, is it scary? Also scary. Okay, but all of this is scary. All of it's scary. What we're going to talk about today is generative AI. So generative AI, look, the default right now, just like IBM, you know, we're going to Xerox something. The default right now is ChatGPT. So if you're looking for an example of what generative AI is, these are models that are used to generate content. All right. So they can be ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, DeepSeek, anything you can think of, but also Canva, beautiful AI. They can be used for tasks like creative writing and art, uh, audio synthesis, but they can also be used to analyze things, right, and give you answers. They can be used to create chat bots that do a particular function that a person isn't available to do. So today, that's what we're going to focus on is the generative AI part. But before we do that, because you are nonprofits and you care about the world, we are going to talk a little bit about those trade-offs I mentioned earlier, the ones that we spent a lot of time researching. Um, Trade-offs are something that, you know, I think everybody in this world who's trying to make decisions about AI, I think we've learned a lot as technology has changed over the past 3 to 4 decades about the harm that technology can do to our environment, to our children. There are a lot of issues out there that technology brought. So I love that we're having this conversation right at sort of the dawn of generative AI and how it progresses. So I want to talk about some of these trade-offs and what we know as of today. And I say as of today because literally I changed this slide yesterday based on a new report that came out. So first we're going to talk about the environment. It's the one I think most people know about. The other one is privacy. We'll talk about that as well. Environment use is something that people really have a concern about, and it's reasonable. This is a heavy duty system. Think about what it's able to do. That generates a lot of, needs a lot of energy, and to have energy, you have to cool, right? You have to have a cooling system. So what I will say is, though, that as of yesterday, the per query water use of generative AI has declined substantially. And when I was talking in January, so we're talking what? This is month 8 of the year. Since January, it has declined by 40 times. Okay. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is usage of generative AI has increased by way more than that. So even though per query, you and I aren't killing things, together we're making a giant mess. All right. 700 million GPT 4.0 queries per day translate into freshwater evaporation equivalent to the annual drinking water needs of 1.2 million people. That is not nothing. So it's going to get better. Now, I don't have the link to the Washington Post article here, but just look up ChatGPT in the Washington Post from yesterday. It was a really interesting article that talked about the things that are actually worse. I don't know that this is going to make you feel better about yourself. It might make you feel better about AI. Netflix, streaming, they are all much worse. They're actually the reason that the data centers are moving as fast as they do. They actually use much more energy. The one that blew me away, not that I didn't already know this was intensive, but you're actually doing more harm when you eat a hamburger because of the intensive way in which meat is grown and becomes a hamburger in this country. Again, that is not an excuse for us to just thank you, Carolyn, appreciate it, perfect. That's not an excuse, but it is something to look at when you're looking at the things to be aware of, that this will keep getting better. There's real motivation to make it get better, mostly because look, people are fighting data centers right and left. They're not going to be able to be everywhere. We do have to make this more efficient. Okay, so community justice. I want to talk to you about, we know the data centers are a problem. And unfortunately, it's the same model we have continued to do throughout history. We look at Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, working class communities, and we say, let's put it there. So we don't want that. Now, at the same time, people like you, nonprofits, are starting to see that AI-powered tools can actually amplify their reach, right? We are better able to translate than we were able to before, and many more languages than we were. Triage can be faster. Initial screenings can be faster. Providing materials, again, in many languages can be faster. So there are a lot of ways. What we want to do is get you using AI in a way that is so helpful to your community that it outweighs some of these other things. And also, you want to protest. We're going to talk about that, but we don't want those data centers there. Okay. The evaluation of human creativity. As a writer, this is really important to me. And even myself, I have to check. My first thought when I start writing now is to see what ChatGPT thinks. And I have to take myself away from that and go, what is wrong with you? You were really good at this. Don't make yourself bad at this. So the issue is that it really can replicate human styles without consent. I had a camera operator send me an audio of something his client asked him to do that was Meryl Streep's voice, but AI. And they're going to use it. And I have now seen many commercials where you've got celebrity-like voices. And we don't like that. We certainly do not want to lose our artists, our designers, our writers. I mean, we're humans, and you cannot replace human creativity. At the same time, even those of us who are creative are finding that some of the tasks that are not our strong point, AI can take care of those so that we can be left to do the creative work. Okay, and now let's look at the privacy, intellectual property, and security. We know that there are issues with privacy. I saw a lot of the questions that you guys posed before we got here today, and they were a lot about being safe and being private. So we're going to talk about that. Look, we're going to always have more vulnerabilities, but again, because the industry knows that's important to us, they are going to race to try to make it as private as possible. And those that are doing it well will be, will tout that and will be able to recognize them. The other thing is the bias, right? So AI concerns around bias. We do know, when Kodak was invented, that's when the bias started when it comes to imagery, right? Kodak learned to develop its film on white faces. And it's still not very good at it. And frankly, even our cell phones are not great at it because that's how photography was invented. AI is the same issue, right? When it's invented by a certain person, it's going to only reflect that person's way of looking at things. So there's a lot of concerns about wrongful arrests and systemic discrimination. At the same time, AI in hiring can actually be very helpful because as humans, we have unconscious bias. And AI looks at something and says, you want these 5 skills, this person has these 5 skills. You're not worried about whether or not they, speak a different language, where they live, how old they are, any of those things. It's saying, okay, let's start with this. And so we've found that it really can improve diversity by up to 25% because it's reducing that human bias. So I don't know if you feel better or worse, if you're about, you're like, never will I use AI because of all those problems. Hopefully you feel like it is a bunch of trade-offs. If we're going to practice ethical AI, and I want to suggest that you check out Joy Buolamwini, I get that wrong every time, or it's very, very hard word. She has written a book called Unmasking AI. She also has a Netflix series of, I think it's a documentary, like a several-part documentary about AI and all of these biases we're talking about. But even she says, look, we're not going to get away from using it. We really just have to say, if we're going to help it, if it's going to help us, or if it's going to make us much more unequal, it's all ultimately up to us. And so that's why diving in is not a bad idea, because the more we learn about it, the more we can use it for good. Okay.
Thank you for
Yep,
running us through. I feel like each of those slides could be its own webinar of
that
all
is
of the
right.
different kind of ethical issues that you raised, but I love how you just like cut right through it and gave us some examples. So now we have another poll for you in the audience. And this is, does your nonprofit have a generative AI policy already? So the answers you could choose are yes, yes, I don't know. No, but we're working on one. No, and I don't think we'll create one anytime soon. Or that fifth option, not applicable or other. So we're going to talk a little bit about, what that policy should cover. And just to reassure everybody, we are going to get into like, here's some ways to do prompting and here's some really practical stuff. But we did want to make sure that we were just kind of meeting everybody where you are and talking about some of these larger issues. So yeah, does your nonprofit have a generative AI policy? All
Wow. Okay. So look, I will say again, my first presentation this year in January, it was completely no yeses, zero yeses. So
right.
you guys have made a lot of progress in 8 months, right? Very, very good. That's 16% is not bad. Working on one, nearly half of you. That's great. I mean, it's not something that just comes right out of thin air. You really do have to think of all of the issues. I don't think we'll create one anytime soon. That says to me a little bit of helplessness, right? Like that maybe you don't necessarily have control over whether you have one or not, which can be very difficult. I'm hoping by the end of this, you will feel like you have the things that you need in order to help that decision along. All right.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you everyone for answering those questions. That's really helpful to us.
All right. So what we're going to do, this is a set of questions that we're going to go through that will help you figure out what your policy should be. The reason that we do this is because every single nonprofit cares about some things more than others, and they're all going to be different. So this is about the questions you need to ask, not about the answers you should have to those questions. All right. So let's go ahead and, if you don't mind, if we can just skip to the first question. I think it's two more slides. Yep, that one. Okay. So the first one you want to take a look at is who is impacted if we use this tool. So again, we talked about, are there trained professionals that will lose their job, right? That's a bad side. The good side is, can it make the job more creative, not just more efficient? So if you've got some entry-level employees, could they be doing something other than monthly reports? That'd be so amazing, right? Is it going to displace community labor? Right? Or individual storytelling? Is it going to take that voice away? The biggest thing you want to ask is who gains power or time and who loses income, on autonomy or voice. All right. So that's that first human impact question. Then the next question is who is left out if we use this tool? All right. So are there biases baked into the tools that we're thinking of using? Do these tools reflect the full range of disability experiences that may be, in the membership that we serve? Could this tool actually bridge gaps for you that you're not covering right now with the staff that you have, or will it widen them? Just, I always think about this digital divide. This has an opportunity. This technology has the opportunity to wipe that out, but only if we make sure that that's where we prioritize its use, is in those communities that need it the most. All right, third question. How does this tool help us pursue our mission? And this is key, and it's why this needs to be so individualized. Because there are environmental organizations, nonprofits out there that are going to have a very, very strict either no AI or one particular kind that they approve AI policy. They just are. That's because their mission is to protect the planet. And why would you continue? Why would you willingly use tools like that? That's why people are vegan. That's why there are all kinds of things. So that is the most important piece to ask yourself. Within our mission, does AI make sense, and how does using it make sense? So is it going to disconnect us from the people that we serve? Are we going to be able to expand our reach? I worked for a bunch of talked to a bunch of housing professionals earlier this year, and we came up with this idea of, they're not available after 5 o'clock to public housing residents. And imagine how it feels from 5 to whoever, whatever happens the next day, to not have anybody to talk to or just leave a voicemail. If you could come up with a chat bot that had the ability to answer basic questions, it's not like you're going to hire a new person anyhow. So you're not taking anybody's job, but you now have found a way to help your residents get a little bit more peace of mind. So these are the kinds of things you have to ask yourself. So does it uplift your mission, or is it going to, quietly shift your priorities, even silently in the background? All right. So next is, what do my employees need to maximize tool use? And we found a lot, a lot. Our rollout of our first policy was early last year, and we are still working with employees, having meetings together. We have cohorts now for each of the different properties to help people use better prompts and things like that. So you need to help them understand, like, if they have concerns, where are they going to go with those? When a new tool comes out, is it totally fine to use it, or should they say, this is something I'd like to use, can we investigate it? Like, what is it that employees need to know in order to use this responsibly, and the way that you want it, that in accordance with your mission? And then finally, what are the ultimate risks and harms? All right, now this is true of, you're going to have to look at every tool differently. But with this, once we figured out what our norms were, we came up with a checklist for every new tool. All right, so you can use this to come up with a checklist. So how is our data handled and by whom? What are you doing about bias and accuracy? What about copyright and consent with the trading data? Most of the major tools have a way for you to say, no, you don't want to train it, even free ones, right? So you can tell the tool in settings that you don't want to use your data for training. Do we know that we are using a piece of tech that has actively tried to harm communities, right? And does it align with our values, or does it undermine them? So this is the kind of research that you need to do every time you try to bring on a new tool. And again, if you just generally assess these questions for yourself, you should be able to come up with a checklist that's a little bit easier to check off as a new tool comes in. But the reason you want to do this is because otherwise your employees are using this stuff anyhow. It's the Wild West out there. And if you can give them some guidance and also some reasons why certain tools aren't great, then that's even better.
I just want to jump in for two
Yeah,
seconds and
sure.
say, this is so interesting. And this is something that a lot of our nonprofit clients are asking us too. And it can be so hard to do the research on the company, on the tool. So if you're suffering that, feeling that, we feel you, we understand it. And I just wanted to mention, a colleague a couple of days ago was saying that he uses AI to help understand
Yes,
what their
that's what I was going to say.
terms of agreement are.
That's
It's like,
exactly
can
right.
you summarize
Ask
this
the
in plain
tool.
language for me? What is your privacy policy? That sort of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The tools are actually, you have to tell the tools not to lie. And I'll tell you about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But you can ask each tool every one of these questions. You can ask one tool this question across all of them, right? Give me a comparison and they'll do what they can. So, yes, use AI to assess AI. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Great, Carolyn. I love it. Okay, so now let's talk about, you've got your policy. How are you going to use AI, and how do you use it in a way that is most helpful to your nonprofit? So the first thing shouldn't be a surprise. To me, if you're a nonprofit, you're going to prioritize the needs of your underserved communities. So when you're looking at all the ways that this can help you and that can help your cause, take a look at how it can be helpful to the communities that you serve first. And then the other thing I would say is, you can advocate. That's what you do. You're advocates. So if you're going to take on AI and say, yes, this is something that we want, think about your role in making sure that companies' feet are to the fire to continue to become as ethical as possible. All right. I think I'm done speechifying now. Can you tell I'm very passionate about this ethical stuff? Okay. So let's talk about it in practice. So the first thing is happy employees. Happy you, happy people like you. It really can automate repetitive tasks. So I will tell you, we have all kinds of little tasks that have been, yes, you absolutely can have this. We have all kinds of little tasks that we have to do every single month that are very frustrating. And one of them is monthly reports. Look, I understand why clients want to know how we're using their money. It's totally fair. It's just very tedious. And actually, we're using their money to write monthly reports, which I think is really dumb. So, but it's been very hard because we have all of these notes that we take in our timesheets, and that's how we build the monthly report. And we could not figure out for the life of us, how in the world do we pull this out and have AI write the monthly report? I finally figured out I could PDF those comments and upload it to, in this case, ChatGPT. And then I could take a monthly report from 2 months ago, give it to it and say, take this information and make it like this. And suddenly I had an 85% done monthly report. And I was so excited because the idea that I could free up, and this is usually falls to your most junior employees who really want to get out of that rut, right? Or looking at media clips or filing things or, managing budgets, all of those things that absolutely you want them to have the skills to do. Not saying you don't, but they'd rather have the bigger skills. They'd rather help you in a deeper way and feel like way more meaning. They do not get a lot out of those repetitive tasks. You really can create a personal assistant. It's funny, one of the things I've gotten AI to do for me is I say, can you help me make a bot? And I just, that will help me with this task. And it does. And it basically creates a little window where you put in the information and it tells it for you. I have like 20 little bots running for me for different tasks that I know I do every day. So, and it'll do it for itself. So it's not like you have to figure out how to build it. It just builds it for you. This really, we get clients all across the board, civil rights, education, farming, all kinds of things. And to learn their concepts quickly is really, really hard. So I use AI to get me up to speed on reports that are coming out, on news, like a week or a month of news that I need to absorb quickly. These concepts and processes, AI can really help you with that. I just got an 18-page report from the World Economic Forum that I have to do a video about next week. And it's all so many words I don't know. And so I uploaded it to AI and it told me what was in the report. And that's very helpful. I'm writing a 2-minute video on an 18-page report. I think that's probably a better way to go. And then finally, when you really think about it, that work you want to do every day, you want to be in the field, you want to be talking to your clients, you want to be doing whatever it is that you do. That's what you want to spend your time for. All right. So the next thing is we want to increase our impact. You can communicate so much faster because and also there's a little microphone function on generative AI. You know how you don't want to type, I want you to do this and this and this and this. Just tell it. And you can have ums and ahs and it doesn't care. And then it's the same thing as if you were having a meeting, only it does what you want it to do. But by doing that, you can create an outline for a blog. You can take one piece of content and say, what are other ways I can use this content? I was in a meeting with a client where the budget was over, right? And it was a training that we were doing. And it was in a situation like this. And somebody said, do you have a tip sheet that you could give us? And while somebody else was talking, I took the PowerPoint and I said, make me a tip sheet. And I sent it back to them. And it didn't cost them anything or me. And they're so excited because now I have a tip sheet I didn't have before. It really allows you to help with crises. So we've had some client crises where I've run a few scenarios. What happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? Because before you were guessing, and you only have maybe 1 or 2 people's background, right? But AI is looking at all kinds of scenarios that maybe you didn't have access to. So sometimes in crises, it can help you choose of the 4 paths available, these 2 are the least risky. It also helps you find the latest research from the field. Now, AI, I want to say, AI is built to please. All right, that is what it is built to do. And just like a 5-year-old, when they do something wrong, they will lie. All right, they lie to please you. AI also lies and hallucinates to please you. So when you want it to do something where you have to have a good source, you have to have the facts, you need to tell it. If there are no sources, let me know. Do not lie. You can literally say, do not lie, do not make anything up. And it will come back and it will say, I'm so sorry, I don't have this. It doesn't exist. but you can get it to do great research.
I heard from someone else maybe a week or two ago to start with something that you know a lot about, and that way you can correct it. You will know if it's telling you, if it's finding good sources, if it's saying things that you would actually do in that situation. And then that can, give you some bit of a clue also as to how the tool works. And just like anything, like if it were your assistant, you would check its work. If it's somebody you had just hired and they were doing a report for you, you wouldn't just hand it to your boss without looking at it. So I think all of those caveats also apply here.
And no, that's absolutely right. I mean, this is your assistant, not your author. That's really, really important. Gordon, I want to answer your question too. So one of the things that I use the most for those little bots is, and this may not matter to a lot of you, but I have to keep time and I have a lot of clients. And so I have a little stopwatch bot and I will put in who I'm working on and then I hit the stopwatch and it tracks it for me. So that when I have to do my timesheet at the end of the day, all I have to do is take a look at that and then I can easily put the things in that I need to do. So that's the example. There's another one that I built to find synonyms for me faster than I can do in Word. So, I put something in and you know how sometimes it's just completely off. Basically, I think my prompt is something like, find me another way to say this, right? And so it will tell me that versus me having to go through the thesaurus. So those are the two I use the most often. Next is, let's take a look at some of the general guidelines. So we just talked about the verifying the names and the numbers. You want to make sure that you're telling it to use neutral and inclusive language. Always say you want to avoid bias. It does a great job at that. It really does. Some of them are better than others, and we'll get into a couple of the properties just to talk about their pros and cons. You want to use the smallest capable model. If you don't need giant chat GPT, if what you need to do can go better with Claude or Change Agent or something else, use the smallest capable model. That will keep your footprint as clean as you can. Definitely keep a record of all of your prompts, because if the prompt worked really well, you're going to need it again, and you don't want to go searching through your history to try to find it. So if it worked well, just have like a little notebook, or ask it to remember this prompt, and it can make you your own little notebook of prompts, but definitely save them. And then the other thing is you definitely want to make sure that all of the research that you come out with, and you have seen that on the slides that I gave you earlier, it's all got a source at the bottom, because everybody assumes everything is written by AI now. I teach at American. I worry all the time. I will tell you, I've tried to figure out how to reverse engineer essay questions so that they can't be written by AI. We're all trying to make sure that what we've got is real human writing. And so the way to make people feel better about that is when you are using sources and you make sure that people know that you're not just pulling this off and you're not filing a major government report that actually doesn't have any sources in it, just as an example. Okay, so creating good prompts. This one is really, to me, what I call this is a context kit. All right, so this context kit is something that for each client I keep in the notes app, and it's the organization's name, its mission, its audience and tone, their general call to action and deadline, 3 to 5 facts with dates and sources, its location, any partners, any consent or privacy limits, like don't do this, don't do that, and then do or do not words. Like we never use the word, what is it called? I can't remember what it's called, but there's one word that everyone, champion. I have one client will not use the word champion in any way. They hate the word. Got to put that in there, right? So you put that all in your notes. And before you ask it to do something, you pop that in and you say, this is the context in which I want you to write, and you teach it that. All right. So already it's going to have the right tone. It's going to have the right audience. It's going to have all of those things. By doing this, you will be prompting less. Why do you want to prompt less? A, faster. B, the fewer prompts you use, the less energy you use, right? So the more efficient you get at prompting, the more ethical you're being. Structure. AIs love paragraphs. Be very specific. I want bullets. I want a table. Don't give me more than 100 words, because what you will get is a treatise if you don't give it limits. And you don't need that. Because then what you're going to do, what I have ended up doing when I forget to ask it, is I'll say, can you summarize that in 100 words? Which is dumb, because I could have just had it do that in the first place. If you want it to write like you, not that you want it to write for you, but if you want it to capture your tone better, upload a couple of similar past pieces by you to help it see how you write. That tends to help a lot. It does get rid of the M dashes, because if you don't write in M dashes, it won't write in M dashes. Okay, generative AI is terrible at math. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I didn't realize this. My daughter actually, her job is she's training AI. She actually trains AI to understand, be more human. So she knows which properties are smarter than other properties. So one day she came by and I was frustratingly trying to get my tool to use math. And she said, "What are you doing? It doesn't know math." I said, "I'm adding like 23 and 84. She said, "It can't add 2 plus 2. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So anyhow, understand that what you get from certain things, you are going to have to check. Just don't bother on math. Really not worth it. Make sure that you're checking for accuracy, and tell it not to guess. No guessing, no lying. It's really ridiculous. You have to treat it like a 5-year-old. Very sweet 5-year-old.
The
Okay.
math thing really makes sense though, because it's not doing the calculation. It is finding, like, when other people did some calculation like that, what did they come up with? And you're like, I wouldn't ask my whole class in math like what the right answer was, because most of them weren't paying attention and did it wrong. So yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it's pulling from various sources. You don't need various sources for math. There's only one math.
Yeah.
So okay. So let's talk about the models. So Claude is the most risk averse model right now. And I want to say this is as of today. Everything changes all the time. Last week we had GPT-5 come out, or 2 weeks ago. And my feelings about that are very different than 4. In fact, I went back to 4 because I really hate 5. I hate it a lot. ChatGPT is really versatile and user-friendly. To me, that is my workhorse, because it can brainstorm for me. It can make lists for me. It does a lot of things really, really well. Copilot is if you're working in the office environment and you work, especially if you work on a server, what you can use Copilot for is really to search your shared drive. And I don't mean like, oh, go find this for me. I mean, if I want to know all the things that I have on my shared drive about a particular client, and I say, find these and summarize them, it will just do it. It will show me the 4 documents it pulled from, and then it will do it. And that's really hard unless you get enterprise versions of any of these. They can't do that for you the way that Copilot can, because it's so enmeshed in Office. Now, I want to say every single one of these, if you're going to use any kind of sensitive data, should be a closed system, meaning not the personal paid for, it should be the enterprise system. Okay. Otherwise, what I'm talking about is how much you can trust it for the free version. Okay. So there's everything that I'm talking to you about now is the free version. So Perplexity is interesting. I think it's probably best for research because it gives you the links. It's not consistent. I don't get consistent or accurate links from any of the other properties the way that I do for Perplexity. But I haven't found it to be much better at anything else than the other models except for that. Gemini, I think, is really powerful. And Carolyn, you said you guys have been using it. I find it hallucinates a lot more than any of the other models. And I don't understand that, but it does. And then the last one is Change Agent. And this one is one that is built specifically for nonprofits. It is getting better and better. At the beginning of the year, we didn't look at it as a possibility, but then later in the year, we've now looked at it as like the one that we may adopt for our whole office. So Definitely check them out. I love what they stand for. They are a very light model, meaning they aren't, they don't have a ton of impact. They are they've worked specifically on their bias issues that other bots have. Okay, I feel like we ran through this. Okay, so finally, when you think about how you're going to build this policy, all right, so I've given you those questions. Do not jump in and buy 5 models. Go with one. Talk to people, ask them what they think of it. What are the good things? What are the bad things? Try to build that comfort among the staff with just one model. If you chose poorly, it doesn't matter. A new one will be out. I chose a platform in March called Beautiful AI that is wonderful. But then Canva came out with a way better model, way faster and way cheaper. Well, now we're into Beautiful AI for the year. So it is what it is, and we'll switch next year. This stuff moves so fast. Don't worry about making the wrong decision because you can switch it. Remember that AI is an assistant and not an author. Create simple guardrails. Yes, no questions, right? Our policy is actually written like an FAQ rather than an actual policy, because that gives people context on how to make decisions, because this isn't that black and white. It's a little bit gray. And then finally, encourage staff experimentation and sharing. We've actually built Teams channels for each of the properties that we have people working on right now. We have 3 main properties that people work on, and they will share, hey, I got it to do this today. Or once in a while, every couple of weeks, we'll send out, okay, everybody, try to get your generative AI to do this particular thing, right? So get everybody involved in group learning. That is it for a whirlwind conversation.
I know. I feel like we could talk about this for hours. I really thank you so much for just downloading so much information on us for this. And we will have this video available later. So if you feel like you missed something, you can go back and check it out. There were a couple of questions in the chat, and also in Q&A. So I'm gonna. We don't have a ton of time, but we're gonna try to get a couple in there. So a couple different people have asked about ways to protect your information. So I think nonprofits have really, gotten onto this idea of when you upload something, like it's going out there publicly and they're using your information to teach their tool to do other things. And potentially they're seeing what your information is. And if you have information on your clients or your constituents that is sensitive, then people are really sensitive about that. So can you talk a little bit about, just quickly, are there ways to best protect your information?
Yeah, absolutely. When we first started using these, we all had, the free versions because we didn't know even what to do about the paid versions or anything else. And we were paranoid. Oh my God, don't put that up. Don't put that up. What I will say is, make sure everything that you put up there is agnostic, that there's no names attached to it. And this is, again, the free versions. But first of all, check your settings. If you're not training the model, there's no reason for it to upload your data. In fact, you can say, do not save my previous chats. All right. So that means that it's deleting your chats as you go. So you can tell it what you want it to do. And again, every one of them know that they don't want to have privacy issues, right? They don't want to have people saying, oh, my data went out. Now, some of them were training on major things when they first started. So the New York Times, for example, found all kinds of pieces of their work in there. That's different than it training on your work. So what I would say is anything financial, anything health related, anything legal, don't put that in there. At the same time, if you get an enterprise version, which means that it is a completely closed system, that means that it's been built for you. And so you are the only one. So OpenAI, actually, most of the closed systems that exist that were, say, built for a bigger company or can be built for you, Change Agent is another one that can be built for you, exists only in your world. So if that's really important to you, then go ahead and invest in either, so ChatGPT, if you're under 150 people, Teams is what you'll use. It's just as safe. And that one, you really can ask it legal advice. You can ask it all kinds of things. Now, but you don't have to. I mean, if you feel like at your organization, you do not want there to be any chance at all, you don't want to find out later, like 23andMe, that in fact, yes, we are going to we are going to sell your DNA to the highest bidder. Look, you have a reason to be paranoid. So if you really feel like you don't want that used, just make it part of your policy that never can these three things be used for AI.
No, that makes sense. We have another question in which I think you talked a little bit about getting the paid version versus the, free version. And I think, I mean, like you just said, like the free version is always going to be like the house always wins. The free
Yeah,
version is always
that's
going to
right. That's
be
exactly
a
right.
benefit to the company that you're using. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think so I'll answer both these questions that are here. The paid version we started doing because I realized how much it would help me with proposals. I didn't want to just put all of our, intellectual property up there. So we got the paid version because it is so expensive for us to write a proposal to a client. It really, right? Like if we don't get anything out of it, it's a very expensive prospect. So for us, we want to cut that cost down. So if I have an old proposal and it can help me write the new one, I'm completely fine with that. But I couldn't do it till we had a paid version because I didn't want to give up our intellectual property. So that's when we decided to do it. So it's when you decide this is going to save us so much time or help us so much with something that it's worth the trade-off of having the safer paid version. And then the Copilot, same thing. If you can afford to upgrade it to the point that it's embedded, it is going to save you so much time. First of all, Copilot is not, when you just compare basic Copilot to basic ChatGPT or Claude, Copilot is like terrible. When you go all the way up and it can interface with your system, that's what makes Copilot so valuable, right? Is to be able to pull up things that are in your interface.
That makes sense. I'm looking through one more question. Maybe we have a minute or so about change agent. So I did share that link,
Mm-hmm.
but can you just say quickly a little bit more about it?
Sure. So um, the developers were asked by a community co-op of organizations to develop a tool, an AI tool, just for them. And I don't know how old it is. Maybe about a year and a half, 2 years old. And so it is built with nonprofit progressive folks in mind, with the idea that it is going to be um, less hit on the environment, less hit on the pocketbook. It is going to be less biased. So the example that they gave in one of the demonstrations was if you ask ChatGPT, what are the advantages to being colorblind? Okay, meaning in cultural world, colorblind. ChatGPT will tell you what the advantages are. Change agent will say, hold on a minute. I don't know that there are any advantages to being colorblind. In fact, here's what you should think about being colorblind. So that's a big difference, right? So again, models that are built to please, whereas change agent, they're really trying to make it much more unbiased. That it's a model that's based on fact first, not pleasing you first.
Yeah, no, that is, had not heard about it before this, and I'm going to look into it because I think a lot of people in the audience probably would like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's getting better. We didn't consider it at the beginning of the year because it just wasn't robust enough for us. But I have a feeling that that's probably what we'll move to in 2026.
Well, and we haven't talked about, someone was asking about other webinars that we plan to hold. And I am interested in doing a webinar on the agents, the AI agents, because it seems like there's a lot of, talk about moving in that direction. And for nonprofits, I think, especially when you have these concerns about your information, I mean, not that for-profits don't have that concern too, but we have this special relationship with our communities, our data, our information that we have. And that ability to write the agent or get the AI to help you create an agent that really is only using your information. And I know you had talked about one instance where, or I think it was someone else I was talking to about creating the chat bot that was only using the nonprofit's information that they had. So they
Yes.
knew that those answers were going to be valid because they were coming from this very limited pool of information. And so being able to create those agents, that's a webinar I definitely want to have.
Yeah, and OpenAI is really what most organizations are using, like because that platform can be whatever you want it to be. ChatGPT
Yeah.
is just an iteration of OpenAI, but you can make your own iteration.
Yeah. Well, I want to quickly go back over our learning objectives, which I feel like, Brenda, you just like knocked these all out of the park. But understanding the different types of AI, defining that ethical AI and why nonprofits particularly are interested in it. You gave us that 5-question framework, which I really appreciated. I shared the link to our acceptable use policy for AI. It doesn't include those 5 questions, so I might take another look at it and revise it, as everything in AI is always evolving so quickly. We talked about using proven prompting strategies to get evidence-based factual responses. And I love all of your ideas of just putting it right in the prompt to, don't lie to me and show your work. And then identifying next steps to implement ethical AI in your organization. So I hope everyone on the webinar feels like you are empowered. Those people, as you said, Brenda, who are like, I don't think we'll be writing a policy anytime soon. I hope that you feel that you got some ideas out of this. The slideshow, we will be making the slides available too, if you want to take those and present those to some of your executive team or people on your board who could help you, make an AI policy for your organization. I've only got a minute, but I want to make sure to invite everyone to our webinar next month. I'm excited to invite you back for a webinar led by Debbie Cameron. She's a partner at Build Consulting and an expert in change management. She did a 3-webinar series for them this summer on planning, implementation, and after you go live, how change management can help you in each of those instances. And I really wanted her to come back and be able to tell us, if you didn't do all those 3 steps, can you still use change management to go back and maybe redo some of that, if you have a technology tool that's not really working for you or for your staff? I know we'll all learn a lot from her. She just is able to explain things in such great, plain language about what change management is and how it works in these principles. So that's on Wednesday, September 17th at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. You can register on our site now. I just shared that link. And you can register for any of our monthly webinars. Our podcasts are there, transcripts. We've got lots of tools and free resources. So I hope you'll check that out at communityit.com. And then I want to make sure that if you're on Reddit, and you have a couple more questions, I'm going to share that link with you too. We are at r/nonprofit IT management. So we're going to go over there in just a few minutes and answer maybe a couple more of these questions that you have for us. So I just want to make sure, Brenda, to thank you so much for your time today and for just sharing all of this experience that you have. I love that it's like you don't have to have this big tech background to be able to use these tools. And I just really appreciate all your insights and experiences. And I want to make sure to remind everyone, as you're leaving the webinar, please do take that survey. It really helps us. It should just pop up right when you're leaving. And we'll see you over on Reddit. Thank you, Brenda.
Bye, everybody. See you soon. Thank you.